Imagine having a wound on your leg that it just simply refuses to heal. And I don't mean a little scrape from a hiking trail that takes a bit longer than usual to scab over. I mean a serious open wound that stays that way for months.
Yeah, which is a truly terrifying and frustrating experience for anyone going through it.
Totally. You know, you are doing everything right. You've got the best compression bandages. You're elevating your leg whenever you sit down, applying all the prescribed creams. But, like, nothing happens. The skin around the wound just stays angry and inflamed.
Right, because the surface damage you see on the skin is really just the final visible stage of a massive failure happening deep underground.
Exactly. And today, we are going to look literally under the skin to see how flipping a biological switch can bring that dead tissue back to life. Okay, let's unpack this.
We are ultimately looking at a fundamental plumbing problem in the human body here.
And to understand how to fix that plumbing, we're diving into a peer-reviewed clinical study from the Journal of Wound Care, along with a companion health blog post that connects these medical findings to the everyday muscle recovery tech you might actually use at the gym.
Which is a huge topic. But we really should start with the scale of the medical problem first.
Yeah, because if you or I get a cut on our arm, you know, it heals. Why is the lower leg so incredibly vulnerable?
Well, the specific issue we're dealing with here is called a venous leg ulcer, or a VLU. They account for like 80% of all hard-to-heal leg ulcers. And the lower leg is constantly fighting gravity. The root cause is chronic venous insufficiency.
Meaning the blood isn't getting back up to the heart.
Right. Think of the veins in your legs as a system of one-way valves. When you walk, your calf muscles squeeze those veins, pumping the blood back up. But if those valves fail, or the muscle just isn't pumping effectively, the blood pools. Pressure builds up in the lower leg.
It's like a broken sump pump in a basement. If that pump fails, fluid just gathers down there, the pressure builds, moisture seeps up, and eventually the floorboards on the ground level just start to rot away from underneath.
That is a perfect analogy.
Because you can't fix it by just painting the floorboards, right? You have to go down into the basement and fix the actual pump.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how this compares to traditional treatments. The gold standard treatment for a venous leg ulcer is compression therapy. Wrapping the leg tightly in specialized bandages to physically squeeze the fluid back up.
But clearly, if these wounds are sticking around for months, compression isn't solving the whole problem.
Right, because compression primarily works on the macrovascular level. It acts on the big pipes. But the real crisis is happening on the microvascular level, the tiny capillaries that are sometimes only a single cell thick.
Oh, wow. Only one cell thick.
Yeah. So when the big pipes get backed up, the pressure transfers to these microscopic capillaries. They get damaged, fluid leaks out, causing swelling, and they can actually collapse under the pressure. When that happens, the surrounding skin is entirely starved of oxygen.
Because the microscopic pipes are the ones that actually deliver the goods to the skin cells. If they're crushed, the tissue dies and you get an ulcer.
Which brings us to the core premise of this study. The researchers hypothesized that you can squeeze the big pipes all you want, but if the microcirculation remains blocked, the wound will just never heal.
So if compression bandages only squeeze the macro system, how did this research team actually bypass the big pipes to fix the micro ones?
Well, a team of specialists at Ealing Hospital in London set up an observational clinical approach. And we're talking about a highly specialized team here.
Right, like a vascular surgeon, biomedical engineers, the works.
Exactly. And they didn't make it easy on themselves with the patient selection either. They recruited 16 patients with severe C6 venous leg ulcers.
C6, that sounds intense.
It is. C6 basically means the absolute most severe stage. The skin is fully broken open, it's an active ulcer, and it is actively resisting standard treatment.
So these patients were already using the compression bandages and the wounds were just stubbornly sitting there?
Yeah, completely unhealed.
Okay, so to see what was happening inside those microscopic capillaries without, like, cutting the leg open, they used laser speckle contrast imaging, or LSCI. I need you to explain this, because the idea of a camera capturing blood flow in a vessel thinner than a human hair sounds like science fiction.
It's a brilliant diagnostic tool, honestly. LSCI is completely non-invasive, which is vital because physically touching a wound can actually alter the local blood flow and skew your data.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So the camera shoots a safe broad beam laser over the surface of the skin. And when that laser light hits moving particles, specifically the red blood cells flowing through those tiny capillaries, the light scatters in a fluctuating pattern.
So it's literally tracking the movement of individual cells.
Yes, and it translates that scattering into a real-time, color-coded heat map of the blood flow. They used it to measure the wound bed itself and the periwound, which is the skin immediately surrounding the ulcer.
The periwound is kind of the battleground, right? It's the inflamed tissue that's next to die if circulation isn't restored.
Exactly. So they took baseline images while the patients rested, and the initial heat maps showed exactly what you'd expect from a C6 ulcer: very little perfusion. The blood was essentially stagnant.
And then they introduced the intervention. They applied a neuromuscular electrical stimulation device, an NMAS device called the Gecko. But here is where the methodology caught me completely off guard.
Oh, the placement.
Yeah, the ulcer is down by the ankle, but the study specifies they applied this little self-adhesive device to the outer back area of the knee. Like, why are they treating the knee for a wound that is 1.5 feet away?
I mean, it seems totally counterintuitive until you look at the wiring of the human leg. They aren't trying to treat the skin at the knee. They're targeting a specific nerve called the common peroneal nerve.
Okay, and what does that nerve do?
It branches off the sciatic nerve and runs right near the surface, just behind and to the outside of the knee. And most importantly, it is the master control switch for several major calf muscles.
Oh, wow. So they are bypassing the wound entirely to get to the control panel.
Exactly. By delivering a gentle, fixed electrical pulse to that nerve, the device artificially fires the calf muscles. It causes them to contract and relax rhythmically.
So they are forcibly turning the sump pump on.
Yes, making the muscle act as a secondary heart to clear the fluid out of the lower leg, all without the patient having to stand up or put any weight on their foot.
So they flip the switch at the knee, the calf starts pumping, and they point the laser camera back down at the ankle. And they didn't run this for days or weeks to get a reading, right?
Not at all. 10 minutes.
Wait, really? Just 10 minutes?
10 minutes of activation was all it took to completely alter the local environment of the wound.
The numbers are wild. We see a 27% increase in blood flow right inside the dead wound bed, and a 34% increase in the surrounding skin. The heat maps just shift from dark colors to lighting up with fresh perfusion.
That visual confirmation is powerful. It proves the macro pump of the calf directly forces blood into the microcapillaries. But the sheer volume of blood isn't even the most important finding here.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just more blood, it was how the blood moved. They measured something called pulsatility, right?
Yeah, pulsatility is the rhythmic surging of the blood. With each beat, there's a wave of pressure. When the device was turned on, pulsatility didn't just go up a little, it jumped by 170% in the wound bed.
And 173% in the surrounding skin.
It's massive. And the blood was pulsing at exactly 60 beats per minute, directly matching the frequency of the NMES device.
So the little device on the knee was physically dictating the rhythm of the blood flow in microscopic veins down at the ankle.
It was. And we really need to dig into why that rhythm matters so much to human biology. You might assume that as long as blood is reaching the tissue, it doesn't matter if it's a steady trickle or a pulsing wave.
But physiologically, the difference is night and day, right? Let's break that down. Why does steady flow fail where pulsing flow succeeds?
Think about the inner lining of those tiny blood vessels called the endothelial cells. These cells are incredibly sensitive to their mechanical environment.
Okay.
If they only experience a steady, low-pressure flow, or worse, stagnant fluid, they don't receive the physical signals they need to stay healthy. Over time, a steady flow can actually cause the capillaries to collapse.
But a rhythmic, pulsatile flow creates a physical force against the walls. The study refers to it as shear stress.
Yeah, shear stress is the mechanical friction of the blood forcefully rubbing against those endothelial cells. When you have a strong pulsing wave, the blood physically drags against the inner walls.
It sounds like it could cause damage, honestly.
It does sound like that. But in this context, that friction is a vital biological trigger.
It's like the difference between cleaning a dirty driveway with a regular garden hose versus a pressure washer.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like if you just leave a hose running, a steady trickle of water gets the driveway wet, sure, but it just flows over the dirt. If you use a pressure washer where the water is actively pulsing and blasting with force, that friction strips away the grime and totally changes the physical environment.
And the body actively responds to that pressure washing friction. When the endothelial cells feel that rhythmic shear stress, they react by releasing nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide, which is a potent natural vasodilator.
Exactly. It commands the smooth muscles in the vessel walls to relax, which opens the capillaries up even wider.
So the friction forces the pipe to expand, which lets even more blood in.
It's a positive feedback loop. And beyond nitric oxide, that shear stress also triggers the production of growth factors, the literal cellular building blocks for new tissue.
It prevents those tiny capillaries from collapsing.
Right, the pulsing rhythm is quite literally the signal for those cells to stay alive and rebuild.
It completely shifts the perspective on how healing works. We tend to think of healing as just a biochemical process, swallow a pill, apply a cream.
But this study shows that healing is heavily dependent on mechanical forces. By artificially creating a 60 beat per minute rhythm, they force the body's chemistry to change, opening up closed vessels.
So what does this all mean for someone listening to this right now? I mean, someone who doesn't have a severe leg ulcer.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it moves beyond a hospital setting. The mechanism here, activating the muscle pump to drive microcirculation through shear stress, that is the fundamental science behind everyday EMS technology.
Everyday EMS. The companion piece we looked at bridges this gap perfectly. People use consumer EMS devices all the time for post-workout muscle recovery or to deal with leg swelling after a long flight.
Yeah, or just countering the effects of sitting at a desk all day. The consumer market for EMS is massive, and it's often clouded by flashy marketing.
Right. Devices promise you'll recover faster, but it's hard to know if making your muscles twitch is actually doing anything beneficial on a cellular level.
And it is easy to confuse it with 10NS units, which just scramble nerve signals to hide pain. NMES actually fires the muscle motor nerves.
You feel the twitch on your skin, and it's easy to dismiss it as a parlor trick. But the clinical data from Ealing Hospital validates the core premise. It proves it's not just a surface-level sensation.
It demonstrates that an external electrical pulse can actively alter deep cellular environments. When you do a heavy gym session, you create micro tears in your muscle fibers and build up metabolic waste products like lactic acid.
And the bottleneck for recovery is how fast your body can flush that waste out and deliver oxygen-rich blood to the tissues.
Right. And if your muscles are sore, your natural pump isn't working at peak efficiency. Using an EMS device replicates that shear stress we just talked about.
It forces the nitric oxide release, dilates microcapillaries, and physically forces the exchange of fluids.
This study provides the visual, peer-reviewed map of exactly how that electrical stimulation forces recovery at a capillary level.
It strips away all the marketing fluff. You aren't injecting a chemical to heal faster, you're providing the precise mechanical conditions your body needs to do the job itself.
The human body already possesses all the biological machinery to heal a chronic wound or recover from a marathon. But it is entirely dependent on having the right environment, good blood flow, and the correct mechanical signaling.
Because we evolved to be in motion, right? Our ancestors weren't sitting in office chairs for 8 hours a day.
Exactly. We evolved to have those calf muscles constantly pumping, creating a constant supply of shear stress. When our modern lifestyle or a disease stops that movement, the internal signaling breaks down, the capillaries collapse.
Finding ways to artificially replicate that pulsing rhythm isn't just a biohacking luxury, it's replicating a fundamental physiological necessity.
It really is.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We started with one of the most stubborn plumbing problems in medicine, the venous leg ulcer, where a failing macropump slowly starves the microscopic capillaries.
Then we looked at how researchers use non-invasive laser imaging to map the stagnant blood in real time.
We explored how targeting a master nerve behind the knee can turn the calf into a secondary heart, proving that the pulsing rhythm of the blood is the real trigger for healing.
And finally, we saw how that same clinical mechanism validates the everyday EMS technology you might use after a tough workout. This raises an important question about how dependent our bodies are on movement just to maintain basic cellular health.
It does. It makes you reconsider the physical forces happening inside your veins right now. And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your day. We've seen the hard data. If a simple, gentle, 60 beat per minute electrical pulse delivered to a single nerve on the side of your knee can command your body to literally rebuild dead flesh just by tweaking the friction inside your microscopic veins, what other hidden biological switches are you walking around with, completely unaware, just waiting for the right frequency to be turned on? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.